In this video, we are going to look at contractions and possessives. These are some of the words that we get mixed up all the time. They sound the same, however, they are written very differently. Contractions. So when we are using a contraction, we are in general, we are taking two words and combining them to make our sentence shorter. For example, I hope that you will watch this video can be shortened to I hope that you'll watch this video. So we've taken out the W and the I. There are a lot of these that we could do. So should not becomes shouldn't. Was not becomes wasn't. Now, I don't want you to memorize all of these, and the reason being is you shouldn't be using contractions in formal writing. So avoid that, especially on the literacy test. It will look more professional and will earn you more marks if you avoid contractions. Also, you'll notice that a lot of these are verbs. Well, actually, all of them are verbs. You need to make sure that you are only using contractions with verbs if you ever use them. And the reason being is anytime you use a noun and put an apostrophe and an S, that implies that you're owning something. So in this sentence here, the dog's tired, you might be trying to combine the is with dogs. So it just says the dog's tired. However, that looks like a possessive, which means the dog's owning something. In this case, you don't really own being tired. Tired is not property. Tired is a state of being. So you would keep it as the dog is tired. Possessive nouns and pronouns. So I've got our suspect here. I've called him Mike to help us out. So a possessive noun, so when we change a noun to make it seem like it's owning something in a sentence, it's different in every case. So we're going to look at common nouns, proper nouns, and pronouns. So here we have a common noun. So Heather spotted the suspect. So suspect is our common noun. The possessive noun would be Heather spotted the suspect's car. So I've added an apostrophe S to make sure that you know that Heather spotted the suspect's car. The car belongs to the suspect. Now here's an example with a proper noun. Heather spotted Mike. Mike is our proper noun. And here the possessive noun is Heather spotted Mike's car. You put an apostrophe S in order to make it grammatically correct. Pretty straightforward. Now this is where it gets tricky. There's a pronoun here. Heather spotted him. The possessive noun, though, is Heather spotted his car. And that could change with each pronoun that you use. For example, I could say, I saw your car. Okay, so I know that vehicle is yours. However, if I were to say that car is yours, you would just add the S. You don't need an apostrophe. So you need to make sure that you're double checking anytime that you're using a pronoun. If it's a proper noun or a common noun, most of the time you're just going to add an apostrophe S. But I'll talk about some of those exceptions. Multiple ownership. So this is where we get into the trouble of misplaced apostrophes with possessive nouns and pronouns. So there's two ways you can read this sentence. The first one here says the student's car was towed away. If I put the apostrophe after the S in students, it implies that there was a group of students who owned one vehicle together. They all owned a share of that vehicle, and their vehicle got towed away. If I put the students, and in this case I have student apostrophe S, it implies that one student owned that car and it was towed away. For example, this guy, maybe he got an unlucky break. Names or other pronouns ending with S, singular nouns need an apostrophe followed by an S. For example, that is my boss's fridge. So that is correct because there is one boss. It's his fridge, so you put the apostrophe S. However, this can change if there's a group of bosses. So in this case, I've added an ES. So those are the boss's rules. In this case, it's different from this sentence because I've implied that there are a bunch of bosses who get together, and as a group, those are their rules. If I wanted to make it one boss's rule, I would spell it the same way here. However, you're not always going to add an ES to make a common noun plural. In this case here, that's the bee's honey. You wouldn't add bees's. That just sounds funny. But you would still make sure that you would spell it as BEES apostrophe, because that implies that the whole beehive owns that honey. If you wanted to change it to one bee owning that honey, you would put the apostrophe before the S, and it changes it to a singular noun. Now we'll look at commonly confused contractions and possessives. Hopefully some of these catchphrases will help you in the future. It's in its nest. So it is, whatever that thing is, in its nest. So it owns it here. You don't have to put anything apostrophe wise for its if you own it. So its is a contraction of it and is, and that's all it is. Here we have your versus your. So your dinner versus your dinner. One leaves you nourished. So if you eat your dinner, it's going in your stomach. The other leaves you dead because you are dinner. Correct grammar. It saves lives. Here's another one. They're over there with their coffee. So they are is the contraction. Over there. So there, E-R-E is the place, with their coffee. So E-I-R implies ownership. So they're over there with their coffee. Whose and whose. So whose side are you on versus who's on my side? So the second sentence is asking, who is on my side? So you're asking who in the group is on your side. Maybe Mike and Paul are, but Steve decided he was going to ditch you. Whose side are you on? That, when you say whose, in this case, WHOSE, you are asking a person whose side they've taken. So they're taking ownership of what side of the argument they're on. And that is how it's done. Thank you, Chuck Norris, and that's the end of this lesson.